Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, we're going to get into some Jakobi Meyers extension rumors, plus the Raiders news that you need to know today. I'll admit, some of this is from yesterday, and I apologize again. I was really sick yesterday, and that's why I was unable to go live, but that's why we decided to go live today here on the Raiders Report. Let's first talk about Jakobi Meyers, and I'm not saying that it's been reported that the Raiders are working on a Jakobi Meyers extension, but if it was me and if I was in the room with John Spytek and Pete Carroll, I would go, all right, now that we got the Geno Smith contract extension done, what are we trying to do now? We should now be trying to give a contract extension to Jakobi Meyers or Kolton Miller. I'll be very frank. I'm going to make a video around why I think the Raiders should also give Miller a contract extension. That's going to be next week. But if I have to prioritize a certain player, I'm going to prioritize Jakobi Meyers simply because he's a little bit younger. And I could admit that it might be harder for you to be able to find a Kolton Miller replacement than Meyers. But at the end of the day, if you really did not want to extend Kolton, you could go out and you could draft an offensive lineman at 6. And I don't think it's as easy to find a wide receiver replacement at pick number 6. So if you're like me and you want the silver and black to give Jakobi Meyers a contract extension, I want you to click that like button right now, because whether you agree with everything that this organization does, I can't say this often, but I do think if you sat down in a room with 100 Raiders fans and said, do you want Jakobi Meyers to be a part of this team for the next 3 years, that next window, if you will, with Pete Carroll? I think all 100 Raiders fans would say it because they don't make guys like Jakobi Meyers, especially at that wide receiver position. So let's go into why I think that the Raiders could end up extending Jakobi. The first reason, and it's the biggest reason, it's the contract. And I brought up why in this year's past, the offseason a few months ago, why I believe that the Raiders could end up giving Jakobi a contract extension. And he's got $0 million left guaranteed on that deal with only 1 year left, right? He's going to be a free agent in the year 2026. However, though, I would give him that 2-year extension, make him all the way through the year 2027, because he already has 2 void years on his contract. Friendly reminder, Jakobi restructured his contract earlier this past season, and that added 2 void years. If you also remember with Max Crosby, he had 3 void years left on his deal, and the Raiders used those 3 void years, and they just had it a part of that new contract extension. If we're going to be paying Jakobi no matter what into the year 2027, I'd rather let's give him a deal, a team-friendly deal that also is friendly to Jakobi, and then let's lock him in for the Raiders for the next 2 years, technically the next 3 years. So if I'm sitting down with Jakobi's agent, I'm going to give you a 2-year deal, $40 million, and it's going to be fully guaranteed. Because I worry if you don't give him fully guaranteed, this number could actually go up a little bit more, but that puts his new deal at a 3-year, $55 million deal where he's making about $18.3 million. At the time, right now, he would be the 22nd highest paid wide receiver per year right now. And I think if you were to ask a lot of fans out there, like, where exactly do you rank Jakobi Meyers in terms of NFL wide receivers? I think the 22nd best is a pretty fair overall judgment. But then think about how good of this deal is going to look next season. And then in 2027. And in 2026 and in 2027, I think is when the Raiders are really going to go for that Super Bowl window. They're trying to get Rome built, but they're really trying to have Rome be ready to rock by 2026 and in 2027. I think it's also the perfect offseason to extend Jakobi after a weak free agency class. A lot of times when you see these receivers in free agency get big-time deals, and I get it, Jamar Chase got a gigantic deal. That's not really who I'm comparing. But when you just consider the wide receivers that were in this year's free agency pool, I don't really think that a lot of guys got big deals. Somebody might say, oh, well, what about Stephon Diggs, 3 for $69? I almost wonder if a guy like Stephon Diggs would have rathered a $40 million guaranteed deal for 2 years instead of basically it was a 1-year prove-it deal at 26 with some upside, for those remaining 2 years. Because this was such a weak free agency class and because it's a weak draft class, I think it's a great offseason to get an extension done with Jakobi Meyers. Let's go to the next reason why I would say that an extension should try to get done here. You have the money in order to do it, right? And I actually think one of the ways that you could sit down and maybe just have your fans calm down a little bit, and maybe calm down is not the right word, but there are a group of Raider fans that are like, why aren't the Raiders going out and doing X, Y, Z? We still have all this money. We do still have a lot of money. You got third most according to Overthecap, second most according to Spotrac, and both of them kind of do contracts a little bit differently. The message here is you got somewhere between $42 million to spend for your salary cap space. Plus, that's plenty of money to extend Meyers. And I've also said in years past, like, you could structure it where you could save more money this year. Or I think the way that they honestly would do it is they might potentially front load it, and then that way in 2026 and in 2027, Jacoby's making even less money, which then gives you more ability in those 2 years to go out and sign more big-time players to help you chase that Super Bowl ring. Let's go to the next reason here of why I think that the Raiders could extend Jakobi Meyers. He is a legit wide receiver too. I love Jacobe Meyers and everything that he stands for. However, I don't know if I can really call him a wide receiver 1. You might be able to call him a wide receiver 1B, but if he's your true number 1, and, even like, think about the Raiders where, those aren't right. I don't know what you're showing me on that left side. But even for, like, the Raiders standpoint, like, you know that he's a good receiver. We know that he's a good receiver, and we know how talented that he can be. But even the Raiders earlier this offseason were talking about how they are looking for a true number 1 because they don't really value Jacoby as that true number 1 wide receiver overall. So knowing that this is a guy that last season had 87 catches, had 1,000 yards, had 4 touchdowns. The year before that was a very consistent receiver. Hell, over the past 4 years, he's been a very consistent receiver on some bad Patriots teams. Let's just call it what it is. Some bad Raiders teams. Imagine now you give him Geno Smith, and then imagine what he's going to be able to cook up even with Chip Kelly. I mean, he's dealing with Luke Getsy. He's dealing with Mick Lombardi. He's dealing with all these other offensive coordinators, all these different head coaches that, quite frankly, I don't really think use guys in the right way. And it's funny because on our live show today, think about how much we were talking about Josh Jacobs. Even though Josh Jacobs isn't my favorite human being, I do respect what he has to say from time to time. And for Jacobs, literally this offseason, and I get it, he doesn't have to say this stuff, but the fact that he said something positive about the Raiders, and if you followed anything about Jacobs, he's been throwing the Raiders under the bus left and right since he went to Green Bay, and maybe he feels some type of way. That's up to him. But he literally called Jakobi Meyers one of the most underrated players in the NFL, and I can't agree with that statement enough, right? And I really, really, truly mean that. So last season, again, he had 87 catches, over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. He didn't have any drops. That's just depending on who you look at that does stats. Some people say he doesn't have any drops. Most of the people that we look at here doesn't have any drops. But last season, 71 catches, 807 yards, 2022. He's been consistently one of the top receivers in the NFL, and he's also been, that key word, consistent. When you know that you have somebody that's consistent and fits everything that you ask him to do, that's somebody that I'm willing to pay some money to. So let me know down below. This is going to be the pinned comment here on today's show. Will the Raiders end up extending Jakobi Meyers this offseason? If you think that they are going to extend him, type extend down below. If you think that they're like, nah, I'm going to pass, I'm going to pay him his $15 million this season, and then I'm going to let him hit the open market free agency next offseason. That's okay. That's your decision. My answer is extend, and if you're on board with me, I hope that you type extend also down below. So for me personally, again, I said I'd give him a 2-year, $40 million deal, which gives him now 3 years for $55 million. I am team extend Jakobi Meyers. Let's go to the next reason here of why I think that he could end up getting this deal done with the Las Vegas Raiders. He is a great fit with Geno Smith, and just like we've talked about some of these other wide receivers that you could add in free agency, a Tyler Lockett, a Keenan Allen, right? Like, we know that these guys could be good fits with the Raiders. Here's another player that I know for a fact would be a great fit with Geno. It's Jakobi Meyers. So if you gave Geno Smith essentially a 2-year deal, now he's got a 3-year deal, I'm trying to tie Jakobi to Geno. Over the past 3 seasons, according to Warren Sharp, Geno Smith is the NFL's most accurate quarterback over the past 3 seasons. Meyers was the only receiver in the NFL last season with over 100 targets to not have a single drop, which, again, there are some people that look at stats and stat sites out there that say he did have 1 drop, but there are a lot of stat sites out there that say he doesn't have any drops, and I'm just going to be real with you, right? Also, when you look at Geno's tape, and I get not everybody's going to watch Geno's tape. I've told people to do it. If you haven't done it by now, you're probably never going to do it. But the amount of times Geno relied on JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, on 3rd down situations, on just critical moments where Geno knew that he was going to put the ball on target, and that ball needed to be in the right place at the right time, and you just needed somebody that had sure hands that could catch the football. I'm telling you this right now. If Chip Kelly, if the Raiders are smart, they're going to look at what Seattle did with JSN over the past 2 seasons, and that's how they're going to try to implement what Jacoby does. I do think Jackson Smith is a better athlete. However, though, the way that they can run route trees, the way that they're fluid, the way that they just honestly present their routes, it's all very similar. They're great possession receivers, and I know Geno Smith and frickin' Jacobe Meyers going to have great chemistry this upcoming season. I got another reason coming up here in just a moment, but today's show is sponsored by Game Time. Last-minute tickets at that lowest price guarantee, and Game Time now is the official ticketing partner of the Raiders Report. And I love this time of the year because playoffs, they're right around the corner for the NBA, NHL, plus baseball is finally back. If you're trying to go to your favorite sporting events, Game Time is the app for you. Last-minute tickets and zone deals, views from all your seats in the venue, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. Probably my favorite thing, though, about Game Time is the Game Time picks. You can save up to 60% off by buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. Game Time picks make last-minute ticket buying easier than ever by quickly highlighting the best deals in the stadium. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, that's CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today, and if you're wondering what time is it, it's game time. It's also time for the Raiders to build that culture, and that's what they're trying to do, and that's what Jakobi does. Like, think about today's day and age for wide receivers in the NFL. And I feel like when you talk about wide receivers, the one word that gets thrown out there a lot is diva. And there's a lot of divas at the wide receiver position. That's not Jakobi Meyers. Jakobi is one of the hardest working players in the NFL, and that has been talked about from New England, from all these different coaching standpoints, and a lot of the times when a team like the Raiders has the amount of turnover that they do, and it's not a secret. We've had GMs, we've had head coaches, we've had offensive coordinators, we've had quarterbacks, we've had a lot of change. So sometimes when you see a player that just deals with a lot of change and they're just always around on one staff or they're always around on one team despite all the changes around them, it's probably because that guy is a great person to be around. Also, one of the other things that Jakobi does, that let's just be honest, Davante wasn't willing to do. Davante cared about one person and one person only. That was Davante Adams. What Jakobi Meyers is so good at is anything you ask him to do, he's just going to go out there and he's going to do it. Why? Because he is a professional. And finding professionals that work really hard, that are willing to do whatever it takes at a diva-filled position is such an important character trait that if you're a team like the Raiders and Pete Carroll and John Spytek are talking about all these guys, we want guys that love football. We want guys that are going to help build a culture. You got a one-year deal left with Jakobi. Every time the Raiders have put together a 3-year deal, Max Crosby, that means they're tying him in with Pete Carroll because Pete Carroll's got a 3-year deal, 4-year potential deal on top of that, right? But Max Crosby, 3-year deal. Adam Butler, 3-year deal. Geno Smith, 3-year deal. When you're looking at a lot of the deals that the Raiders have, guys that they think are a part of this culture build, they are slapping on the ability to have them for 3 years. My point is, I don't see how anybody from this organization can preach everything that they have preached about what they want in a Raider and what they're trying to build for the future and you not give Jakobi Meyers a contract extension. Maybe the money that I presented is a little bit too rich for some of the people out there, but I do really think if you give him money now, he's only 28, 29 years old. He's going to be a very consistent receiver over the next 3 years, obviously regarding injury. But again, what he gives you on and off the field, I think for a team like the Raiders, is everything that you could have asked for because he's the complete opposite of somebody like Davante Adams. Coming up next here, let's get into the Raiders news that I would say that the nation needs to know. And some of this stuff popped up yesterday, and again, I apologize for me being sick. Usually, I am always on top of everything, but I don't know what the hell happened to me yesterday. I was really banged up. We had a lot of chills. It was not good. Speaking of chills, this guy is gigantic, and it gives me chills thinking about him in a silver and black uniform. Yahya Black, he is probably one of the most massive human beings in the NFL draft. I mean, you're talking about, we have him listed here at 6'5". There's some sites out there that have him listed at 6'6". I've seen up there close to 340, 350 pounds. And this is one of those dudes where if you believe in Rob Leonard, you should be all about this because he is a massive, and I mean massive nose tackle with a 7-foot wingspan, and his hands are humongous. When he hits somebody in the chest, you almost hear a thud and an echo. I will admit, though, he's really just a space eater right now, and with proper coaching, I do think that he has some serious upside because you can't build a body like this guy. I mean, it's just a massive human being. He is a run stopper, but the problem is he offers you basically nothing in the passing game. For the Raiders right now, though, I know for a fact that they're looking for an extra nose tackles, and they could potentially be looking for some nose tackles on day 3. Yahya Black here, he could be somebody we're looking for on day 3. Let's go to another player here that had a local visit for the Raiders. I'll admit, I have reached out to a few people that I usually talk to, and I can't confirm whether or not this was a top 30 visit or if this was just a local visit for the Las Vegas Raiders. But Ethan Garbers had a visit with the Silver and Black. And this is interesting to me because, no, I don't think that this guy is going to compete for anything legit. But I do know that the Raiders have used the word compete multiple times out there. And the person that I would say if the Raiders end up bringing Ethan Garbers, not going to be somebody that you draft, probably going to be somebody that you bring in as a UDFA, and you let that UDFA compete with Carter Bradley. And I hope that the Raiders do it. I hope that the Raiders literally bring in competition for every single player and let them go out there and compete. But Chip Kelly recruited them to UCLA, also spent 3 seasons with Chip from 2021 to 2023, and Garbers himself this offseason credited Chip Kelly with his development. But because he is a great leader, which has been something that Kelly himself has even said, that multiple other coaches have said about Garbers, I could see the Raiders trying to bring him in and have him go, you know what, this is going to be the dude that we have compete with Carter Bradley for that practice squad quarterback spot. The final name, and this is a big one, Maxwell Hairston, somebody that's going to be a potentially a round 1 pick. I think he's going to be more of a round 2 pick. Probably in the top 50 is where he's going to land. I'll admit, I did not really think that the Raiders were going to be all too interested in Harrison simply because he's somebody that is a really big liability in the running game. And yes, he offers you a lot of versatility. And that versatility is what the Raiders want. And for somebody that's looking for a quickier twitch, Nate Hobbs is maybe how I'll say it. Dude ran a 4.28 40. He's got great ball skills. But if you're looking for an all-around corner, somebody that wants to be, in that running game, that's just not going to be Maxwell Hairston's game. But if you also know that you have Jeremy Chin, you have an Landon Roberts, you have an Isaiah Paul-Amau, and you've already had a lot of these other, we'll call them safety hybrids that can help you out in the running game, if you put Maxwell Hairston in the right scheme and you let him be an athlete and you let him do exactly what his body is meant to do. And again, that's just be an athlete, man in zone. He's going to be a much better of a player because he also has got some of that, Jack Jones swagger. For anybody that misses Jack Jones, Maxwell Hairston is a much better player than what Jack Jones is. That I can freaking promise you, man. Coming up last year, it's going to be every Raiders top 30 visit so far. And again, these are just the ones that I personally have been able to confirm. If there's another 1 or 2, because from my math, there are only 2 more top 30 visits that the Raiders could potentially have. We are at 28 if, again, everything that I have confirmed is correct. Before we get into all of those, I do want to give a shout-out to Raider Hype, King Shab, Eddie123, Christopher Leonard, and Mr. Raider. I saw some of the comments that you guys made on the video that I dropped yesterday, and, not every comment is always a positive comment, and for me personally, it's not that I need every comment to be positive. That's not truth at all. What I love is when people put thought and when they put actually their opinion and they put a well thought out comment in one of my videos and then people respond to it because that tells me you took time to watch my video and you took time to actually put in a thoughtful comment down below, which believe me when I say this, it does mean a lot to me. If you guys take time out of your day to watch my stuff, I'm always going to do my best to show love to the people that do that. So to you 5, I greatly appreciate you guys going down and watching the shows and commenting on the videos. So let's get into the Raiders top 30 visit tracker. I try to do this by position, and as you can see right now, you got a lot of quarterbacks, running backs up there on screen. 8 QBs had top 30 visits. Again, I can't confirm Ethan Garbers, so just keep that one in mind. From the next slate, we got Mason Graham. He's from Michigan. I don't know why that logo didn't pull, but Jalen Noel, 2 wide receivers, some offensive linemen in there as well. And then, you got a few linebackers that the Raiders decided to also end up meeting with from a top 30 visit tracker standpoint. Overall, we've had 28 players from top to bottom that the Raiders have met with. Jalen Noel is a very interesting player, no doubt about that. I think even somebody along the lines of a Charles Grant is going to be somebody that I talk a little bit more about today for those of you that are watching this live. But then also, we have 8 more players that the Raiders have officially met with on a top 30 visit. Jalen Walker, I listed as a linebacker because the Raiders had him listed. Not the Raiders, but he was listed as a linebacker. You could technically say edge. You could say outside linebacker. If it was up to me, I would use Jalen Walker as an edge because I don't think he's good enough to be a linebacker in the NFL. But if you allow him to be an athlete, he's going to be a really special player. So far, if my math is mathing correctly, the top 30 visit tracker for the Raiders, 8 quarterbacks, 4 cornerbacks, 3 offensive linemen, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 edges, 2 defensive tackles, 3 linebackers, and then 2 safeties is how we end up rounding out the Raiders' top 30. So you got 2 more players that the Raiders can meet with unless I am just simply missing a name. And if I am, again, I'm sorry for missing yesterday. I always try to do my best to stay on top of everything going on around the Las Vegas Raiders. But if you made it this far in the video and you want the Raiders to give an extension to Jakobi Meyers, I hope that you also take time to share this one because I know we have a loud voice, and I know we can be really loud together. And Jakobi, he deserves the contract extension.